Hi guys, it's Erin from Ginger's Florals. Today it's a miserable rainy fall day, so I thought I'd take advantage of the break from the garden and talk to you guys about the 10 perennials that I think every cutting garden should have. Fall right now is the best time to be planting your perennials. Planting them this time of year gives them a chance to get their roots really established over the winter when they're not trying to put on any foliar growth. And then they can have a really good chance of having strong, stable roots and be able to bloom beautifully in the next year. So I have a list of 10 of my favorites that I grow here on the farm that I want to share with you so that maybe you might give them a try yourself. So the first one I want to talk about is Echinacea. Echinacea is a zone, it grows zones 3 through 10, big wide range. It'll bloom for us midsummer through until the fall. It's just about blooming right now. Well, I mean, it's still blooming right now, even though it's October and the weather's pretty terrible. These Echinacea are a cottage garden classic, and they come in a wide range of colors. There's some that you can grow from seed. I've grown the classic Echinacea purpurea from seed, and for us, they're beautiful. They get 4 feet tall with those lavendery purple blooms and the big orange cones. I've also grown a variety called, it's a mix, Cheyenne Spirit. And that one has everywhere from yellows to oranges to reds to kind of a peachy orange or peachy color that kind of spans across. It's really beautiful. And that one I highly recommend. If you get the seeds are relatively expensive, but the amount of plants that you get, you couldn't buy them like that. You couldn't buy that many for the price that you pay for the seeds. It does take a little extra effort, and I start those seeds in the late winter, and then I'm getting blooms now. It took all season, but I've got blooms now off of them, and they're just gorgeous. There's also a ton of different options as far as colors go. There's, I think just about every plant plant grower has their own echinaceas. There you could find green and purple and red and fuchsia and just the gamut, white, all kinds of different flowers or colors. So I recommend these. I recommend these for a couple of reasons, both because they're super tough, they're drought tolerant, they do pretty well, quite a bit of neglect, and even if you don't get them cut before the end of the season, their seed heads, they're gorgeous. They're these orange cones with little spiky seeds sticking out of them. They're fantastic, and they dry beautifully. So if you don't already have some echinacea in your garden, give it a try. The next one I want to talk to you about is yarrow. Yarrow blooms, it grows in zones 2 through 9. It blooms from the early part of July for me all the way to the fall. I have some that's actually blooming still right now. It won't tolerate frost really, but it's another one that dries well also. I should have mentioned the echinacea vase life is, for me, about a week. But yarrow, it's more than that, a week and a half, 10 days, week and a half, even further if it's treated right. This plant, it takes kind of that disc filler flower in a bouquet when you're making market bouquets. It takes up a lot of space with a really beautiful color. It's really easy to start from seed. I have 2 rows out in the field that are yarrow, and I've started all of them from seed. The 2 different varieties that I've grown is the summer berries. Summer pastels was one that I grew 2 years ago, and it's out there doing fine. It's got some reds and kind of plummy colors, like darker colors. I know it says pastels, but it's a little darker than you would expect in a pastel. But it's just a mix of colors. There's yellows and oranges and purples and, well, it's kind of a raspberry, not really purple. And then I also have grown the Colorado mix, which is more clear colors. They're similar in colors, but lighter. They're actually, for me, a bit more of that pastel, softer colors than the summer pastels. Maybe I grew the summer berries. I don't know. Either way, they both grow from seed. Super easy. You can also buy the plants at any local nursery. For the most part, there's very few climates or areas that you can't grow it. Here, we have some wild yarrow, and it kind of seeds itself around. So that's one thing to keep in mind. A lot of perennials will either seed themselves, or they actually spread themselves as they grow. They get bigger and bigger, and you have to either let them go or cut them back and replant them, or you got to take care of that no matter which one. Like I said, there's loads of different colors and varieties. I've got some up here in the St. Francis garden that we bought that are a tangerine color. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, and I will grow that one. It's one of the few that I grow that's just a straight color, not a mix, and I love it. There's a lot up here that's kind of that orangey, tangerine, peachy colors that I really, really love. Like I said, there's loads of different varieties that you can grow from plants if you want specific colors, or mixes from seed, and they're all beautiful. So number 3 on my list is lupin. They grow zones 4 through 8. It's a smaller band, but still covers quite a lot of area. They bloom for us in late spring, early summer, and then if I cut them back, they will reflush again in the late summer into fall, which they're doing right now. I can see one poking over the top back there. These are a beautiful spike-shaped flower that, in my opinion, every market bouquet needs something with that shape that kind of gives a different dimension, and lupin are really great. If you cut them at the right time, they'll have a vase life of 10 days. So it's a really beautiful mix. The two different types, or the two different varieties that I have grown from seed are just the Russell formula mix. It's got all kinds of colors: red, purpley blue, yellow, sort of a dark pink, all the gamuts. And then there's another one that I grow that is it's the Band of Nobles group of varieties. There's My Castle and oh geez, there's lots of different varieties specifically within that group, but like there's My Castle and oh, I can't remember the names of them, but I've grown a mix, and they're similar to Russell, but not quite. There's a bit of a difference in the colors. I really like them. There's some softer hues and some striping that you don't really see. I haven't seen anyways in the Russell mix. In some areas, lupin, you can just scatter the seed and it'll grow back. There's some farms nearby that they have big wildflower fields, and lupin is one of them. They're a great pollinator attractor earlier in the season, and they look beautiful in any kind of cottage garden style garden that you have. So all of these that I'm recommending for a cutting garden, I would absolutely put in a regular garden, just landscape garden. Actually, and quite a lot of them I do have in my regular landscape, and I love them. My lupin this year got hit pretty hard with some aphids, lupin aphids specifically. They're different than all the other aphids that come and go in the garden. They decimated my crop. I got one weekend I got a pretty good cutting out of them. The rest of it, they went, I lost them to the bugs, but I cut them all back. And like I said, most of them have come back and flushed since then, and the aphids are gone. So that is a thing. If you see them early enough and take care of it, they'll put ladybugs out, what have you. You can nip it in the bud. I didn't get to it in time, so I lost some plants. Everything, all but maybe 3 or 4 of my plants came back beautifully. There's a couple that I lost entirely. Okay, number 4 on my list is delphinium. Delphiniums are a really hardy perennial. They are zones 3 through 7. So now keep in mind we're in a zone 8B, but because we're in the Pacific Northwest and we have such moderate temperatures, our springs and falls are really long and cool. We have good hot summers, but it's only for those months. The rest of the season is cool. So we can definitely fudge on that low end, at least into the zone 7s. I wouldn't really try to grow something that needs super cold period, but most plants that need a stratification period, we can meet that just based on our spring and summer being so long, or excuse me, our spring and falls being so long. Delphinium, again, another classic cottage garden flower. It's a little old-fashioned. They're tall. Some of them that I've got in my garden can grow 4 feet tall. They do benefit from staking. They tend to flop over because the flowers are so big and full, and the stems are kind of thin. I've grown several from seed. They're very easy to grow from seed. They are similar to, well, they're just like just like most of the rest of these that can be grown from seed. Delphinium, I start them in the late winter, get the seeds going, and then plant them out in the early spring. As soon as it's just warm enough, I'll put them out there, and they do fine. They're cold hardy. They don't need to be protected all that much. And they will bloom the same season, late in the season for delphinium for sure, at least in my experience. But they will bloom that same season. I have some out front in some pots actually that started from seed this year. John actually planted them up for me because I got just completely distracted and didn't have time. And they're blooming right now, and they're beautiful. There's lots and lots of different varieties. Most of them have purples and blues. It's hard to find a real true blue, and delphinium is one of those plants that does have that. I love it. It's another spike for your bouquets, and they're really just this kind of magical tall stem of flowers that sit in the back, towards the back of a garden if you have it in your landscape. Like I said, delphinium is one of my favorites. There is the slight sort of caution with delphinium. They're in the same family as larkspur, and the whole plant is poisonous. So if you have a dog that likes to eat plants, you might want to think twice about that one. But they're just so beautiful, and if you don't deal with that, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Number 5 on the list is GM. I've talked about GM over and over and over again on my videos, but the stats on GM, they are a zone 5 through 7, so a narrower band, but again, like the delphinium, our zone 8B, we can still grow zone 7. They bloom for us from the middle of spring all the way to the fall. They're still blooming. They started blooming in April, and they haven't stopped since. They're just the best. When I cut them for arrangements, I usually get them when they're just barely opening, and their vase life can be 10 days or longer, because the seed head that's on them, even after the petals have fallen, all the seed, there's these little teeny spikes, for lack of a better word, that are on the seed head that are still bright and colorful and really pretty in a bouquet, even if all the petals are gone. My favorite variety is totally tangerine. I get stems that are 2 feet tall on a regular occurrence. It's pretty much always that length. I like to use them as that airy, sparkly component in bouquets, and they just kind of float above everything else, and I love them. Love them. Um, these all the plants listed in this list, they're not in any kind of order. So, oh, the rain. Sorry about that if it's messing with the audio a little bit. But the GM is definitely in my top 3 for favorite perennials to grow on the farm. GM, you do want to deadhead the flower spikes. It's not a constant thing, but as long as you come back in once a month and take out anything that's left there, it'll keep putting out stems, like I said, from April all the way through into fall. They're just amazing. I know that there's a lot of other varieties beyond the Totally Tangerine. I just haven't tried them, but well, that's not true. We've got some that are much shorter, but these guys consistently have that super long stem, and I know that you can Google where to find them. We get them from a landscape wholesaler an hour or so north of here, and they're just the best. Get some, try some. They're so good. Number 6 on my list is Scabiosa. There's lots of different colors and varieties that are annuals, but Fama Blue and Fama White are a perennial. They're good in zones 3 through 7. Same conversation about we're zone 8B. They both can be started, like so many of these others, they both can be started from seed pretty easily. They do take the full season, at least in my experience, before you'll get blooms. Starting from seed in late winter, you'll grow them on all season long, and then the following season you'll get blooms. But these are just the sweetest discs, kind of bobbly, airy, sparkly discs of flowers. The Fama Blue is kind of that lavendery blue color, and Fama White is white. They're so pretty in a bouquet, especially in the spring, and they'll bloom mid-spring to early summer. They don't have a huge bloom window, at least not for me, but they're really great when they do, and they'll put out a bunch of stems on each plant. Along with every bouquet needing something that's a spike shape, in my style, every bouquet also needs something that's that airy, sparkly thing. The GM suits that, the Scabiosa suits that. If you've grown annual Scabiosa, these are a little bit bigger. The flower heads they're not as small, but they serve the same purpose, and they're really something that I really think every garden should have. So number 7 on the list is Bee Balm or Monarda. There are several annual varieties, but there's lots of different perennials. They're zones 4 through 9, which is pretty good range. They have a vase life if you cut them and you condition them properly. They will last 7 to 10 days, sometimes longer. They are in the mint family, so I have actually seen them root in a vase. So if you're scared of hearing mint in the family of it, they're not going to take over like some mints will. Don't worry about that. They will spread. They will bulk up and get bigger and take up more space over time, but they're not nearly as aggressive as actual mint is. They do have amazing smell, scent. The leaves, to me they smell like Earl Grey tea. Well, one of the varieties is called bergamot, so it makes sense, but they're so good. They add that scent. They have these little whorls of purple or fuchsia or whatever color blooms at the tip top of very long stems. I have some out there that are 3 feet tall. You can cut them all the way back to the ground. They'll flush out once, cut them all the way back to the ground, and then they'll come back and flush out another set of blooms the same season. At least they do for us in our zone. They're one of my absolute favorite bouquet ingredients. The annual varieties generally have kind of a spiky, the whorls kind of stack and they make a bit of a spike. These ones just have one big fat bloom on the top with really interesting looking petals. the bee, or the bees, it's called bee balm for a reason. The bees love them, and the hummingbirds like them too. They have that long sort of tubular petal. They're just so good. Definitely worth trying if you haven't already. Number 8 on the list is columbine. I've talked about columbine a bunch of times before. It's another sparkly, airy accent that I put into bouquets that I really love, and it's unexpected. A lot of people are familiar with columbine in your garden, but when you put it in a bouquet, it will grab some attention. It's pretty fun to watch people say, "Is that columbine?" And they do it all the time. Columbine, it's a native to a lot of places in the US. Specifically, I think it's actually the state flower in Colorado. So it's cold hardy zones 3 through 9, so really cold. The bloom time is mid-spring to early summer. And if you cut all the stems back, they'll sometimes flush a few more blooms here and there. Nothing as big as that first flush, but they'll put out some more flowers. Vase life, if you cut them before they get all the way open and the pollinators can find them, they'll have around 7-day vase life, which is pretty good actually. They do need to grow in part shade. They don't like the hot sun, especially if you live somewhere south or anywhere south of here, California, all the way to the southeast. They want shade at least in the afternoon. We have some growing in our front garden that are just under a big magnolia tree, and they're in deep shade, and they grow happily. You can grow them from seed. I've grown a few different types. There's the Barlow mix and the McKenna Giant. They have lots of different colors, and some flowers are huge and some are small and some are doubled, and they're just amazing. They will also, so fair warning, if they like where they're at, they will seed themselves around. They're easy to pull if you don't want them to do that, any seedlings. It's not hard to take them out, but personally, where I have mine, I'm perfectly happy with them to take over the area. They'll be just a bunch of beautiful little flowers that pop up under this this magnolia tree that they're sitting under. So, like I said, columbine, most people recognize them from their landscape gardens and cottage gardens, but they really do make a good cut flower. All right, number 9 on the list is sedum. Sedum, if you haven't ever grown sedum, I truly highly recommend this one. It's zones 3 through 9. It's a succulent, but a cold hardy succulent. They start blooming in the early summer, and they'll bloom all the way until a frost. You'll see that when it first starts putting out flowers, they're all that same chartreuse, not really chartreuse, that sagey green color, and they will stay that sagey green color until it starts to cool off and we head into late summer and fall. But you can cut them anytime. If you want that green accent, it goes really well in wedding flowers and wedding bouquets. It's also one of my absolute favorite fall garden flowers, that it turns this deep burgundy color with some kind of brown on it. It's so good. I absolutely love it. It holds up beautifully in a vase. It can sit there for 2 weeks. It can dry. You can dry it and it'll hold up fairly well. They're just one of my absolute favorites. It's such a workhorse. They will, like any perennial, it will multiply. You can take cuttings and put it in the grounds, and they will take root fairly easily. The variety that I grow several in my landscape, but the variety I grow that I like to cut from is called Autumn Joy. And that's the one that has that color range, from the green, that sage green color, and then that deep burgundy. It's so amazing. I love it so much, and it's gorgeous. We have it in a little rock garden up front that has a bunch of a bunch of different other kinds of succulents, hardy succulents, and they're just no fuss. They don't want fertilizer, they don't want extra water, although they handle the amount of rain that we get in Pacific Northwest pretty well. They do get a little angry if they get extra water, especially in the summer. We try to avoid watering the grass in a way that gets them extra water. But other than that, they're super drought tolerant. They're so useful in a bouquet. It's that same disc sort of shape like the yarrow. It takes up bulk in a bouquet, and it adds a really nice color any time of the year. Okay, number 10 on my list is astilbe. Astilbe is a shade plant, zones 3 through 9 it blooms. It'll bloom mid-spring to early midsummer. And then if you deadhead it all the way, it'll bloom again late in the season. I have some right now that are blooming. They like the shade. They are pretty easy to grow. You don't grow them from seed though. It's generally bare roots that you'll get, or buy a plant and put it in the ground. They also don't like to dry out. So if you have a sort of damp area, they don't want to sit in water, but they don't want they're not drought tolerant at all. They don't want their soil to dry out. So if you have some spot that stays kind of wet and it's in the shade, it's a good spot for astilbe. They have these long, beautiful spikes of sort of this really delicate, almost fuzzy looking texture bloom. And they come in a wide range of colors. It's really hard to actually find brightly colored shade plants, and these are sort of unique in that. I have several different varieties that I grow. I have this shade garden back. I keep pointing back here because my shade garden runs back here, the St. Francis garden. Astilbe is really fun to grow. And they have a good long vase life. They can have the vase life between 7 to 10 days, at least in my experience. And they're really gorgeous. A lot of wedding designers will specifically request astilbe just because of its delicate nature. It's a pretty tough plant though. They don't take a lot of care other than somewhere shady with moisture. They're pretty good. They can take a bit of a beating. My dogs run them over all the time, and then they come right back and they're fine. Yeah, astilbe, it's a beautiful plant. You'll get lots of flower spikes out of it. It looks lovely in just your landscape, like everything else in here. Like I said, give them a try in your landscape if you don't have a cutting garden, and you can always just cut some stems out of your garden if you want to. They do put out quite a few blooms per plant. If you just buy the root, it's going to take them a couple years to get real bulky, so keep that in mind. But if you buy a plant, it's just fine. Put it in the ground, and that season you'll probably have a good amount of flowers. Okay guys, that's going to do it for this video. I really do recommend each and every one of these perennials. They're fantastic in your landscape. They're beautiful in arrangements. If you grow them for a cutting garden, your cutting garden will be beautiful all by itself. The thing about perennials is that you plant them once, and then so long as nothing crazy happens, you have them forever. They will continue to grow year over year, and the blooms will be there for you without having to put in any extra effort. You end up having to cut them back at the end of the season. Sometimes you cut them back mid-season, but that's it, and then they'll come back for you. They're really, really beautiful. And now, like I said earlier, now in the fall is the best time to plant them. So take a look at your garden centers, see what they have. You can look at even at the clearance racks. They'll have perennials there. If they look pretty terrible, that people didn't buy earlier in the season, you can buy them at a discount. The root system is still good, even if the top of the plant doesn't look good. Get them in the ground, they'll get their roots established, and you'll have beautiful plants come the next spring. Okay guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you're encouraged to get out in your garden, plant some perennials, find a spot, tuck some in, and you will be rewarded with flowers in the future. If you liked it, hit a thumbs up. If you have questions or comments or have other perennials that you think I might like to try, leave a comment, and then and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.